All right, a very interesting time today that we're going to be having on our show, and we're going to be having Mr. Tawanda Sitole, a wonderful, wonderful older brother of mine. And if you don't know the history between me and him, he's the one who taught me sitting volleyball. But anyway, that's a story for another day. But he is an IOC safeguarding officer from the Zimbabwe Olympic Committee, obviously working with the National Olympic Committee here. He is the former chairperson of the Safe and Inclusive Sport Committee at Zimbabwe Olympic Committee, and currently he is the co-chairperson of the ZOC Safeguarding Policy Formulation Committee. Tawanda, thank you so much for affording us your time. I know you're a very busy man, but thank you for affording us your time.
Thank you very much, Ruvimbo. And for a second, I'd actually forgotten that we actually had sitting volleyball at some point. So yeah, thank you very much for having me today.
All right. So obviously, Tawanda, we are going to have you for a very important discussion now, and it's really becoming significant in global sport. And that is the issue around safeguarding.
Yes.
Safeguarding in sport, safe sport. It's a concept that is definitely growing and growing. But first and foremost, what we would want to ask you, and that is to just have a general understanding. When we talk about safeguarding in sport, what are we talking about?
Thank you very much. When we're talking about safeguarding in sport, we are talking about a practice in sport that aims to bring about elements that can be used to prevent what we call non-accidental violence in sport, whilst at the same time increasingly defending the human rights of everyone who is actually participating in sport. So I think in a nutshell, that's what we are looking at. And safeguarding then presents in its form 5 key elements in which we can expand. And we are looking at issues to do with match manipulation, issues to do with inclusivity, issues to do with sports ethics, and then you also look at safe sport and I think I'm given
quite a number. Yeah, but obviously we'll be talking more about that as we continue to go. So if we are then to actually let's break down the very first part, which is obviously talking about the IOC safeguarding framework. What does that basically entail? When did that come about, and maybe more importantly, how is that also being implemented here in Zimbabwe to get all of our listeners and viewers to have an understanding of how that is beginning to manifest, so to speak.
Yeah. So years, let me just say, time immemorial. Today we look at it and we reflect into some 20-some years where a group of researchers looked into the performance of athletes. Everything has been put in place. Everything is evolving as time is evolving. The coaching, the rules and regulations are coming up. The sporting facilities are improving. But we are still having an element of an athlete who is not given or participating to the best of their ability. So in conducting the research, it was then discovered that an athlete is a human being. That's why we spoke about the issue of human rights. An athlete is a human being first before they become an athlete. Right? A coach is a human being first before they become a coach. A sports administrator is a human being before they become an administrator. So they are affected by the same things that a general person is affected. But at the same time, how we then see people exhibiting certain character and certain actions on the field of play has a tendency of then affecting not just themselves, but even the other person that they're competing with. Therefore, these actions or these characteristics are presented in the form of um, uh, their discovery then found out that these things that are affecting these athletes or these sports people are presented in the form of harassment. They are being presented in the form of psychological infect. They are being presented in the form of neglect. They are presented in the form of deprivation. They are being presented in the form of physical, what can I say, dispensation of some sort. So this is how people now started, these researchers started looking into the aspect of what is it that is constituting the desire to then start channeling not just resources, but studies and a different shift or transformation in the approach of how then do we make sure that whoever is participating in the field of play is giving their ultimate best.
Oh, definitely quite a lot. And I think we can even point to particular examples that we've seen coming out. The US gymnastics issue with the doctor who then finally, went to jail and things like that.
Yeah.
So ultimately, these are obviously some of the issues that we're talking about, which leads me into asking a very important term that you coined first out. You said non-accidental violence. So if we say non-accidental violence, maybe give us what some of those are, and maybe are we also meeting up with some of those things from a local perspective as well?
That's fine. I think we want to look at it from a position where we define what is violence. Right? Violence, I think, according to the WHO 2002 publication, was looking into the use of force or power, right, to inflict harm onto a person, right, which may lead onto death, which may lead onto injuries, right. So what the sporting gurus have done or did in trying to curb the occurrences of violence in sport, they came up with rules and regulations. They came up with definitions of how the sport should be played. They came up with referees who are going to be championing the play and see that players, coaches, athletes, or everyone is adhering to the rules of play. Now, because we are coached and we are trained, those aspects are already recognized that sport has a tendency of coming up with some form of violence, but it's not expected to be to a level of destroying someone or killing someone or causing any permanent damage. Now, so when sport is played, these are some form of accidental. They are called accidental. It's some accidental violence. Just picture yourself. Okay, let's look at it from this way. Boxing, you are supposed to inflict some form of pain, but when you go on to, let's look at it from a position of Mike Tyson biting Evander Holyfield, that was now premeditated, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's no longer accidental. You understand? If it was a jab which was going to then knock off an eye, it was not going to be in such a very serious case where we would then have the flesh hanging. Why? Because there's protective clothing that they are putting on in the form of those gloves, isn't it? So that equipment, that sporting equipment that people are then kitted with before they play is because the sporting world has already recognized that sport has a sense of violence in it. So now when we now go on to the term of non-accidental, we are now looking at something that has been premeditated, something that has been influenced by a certain attitude or a certain character of a person that is now causing some form of a damage which was not warranted in the aspect of coming up with how sport is supposed to be played.
Well, definitely there's a lot of interest that is being generated, particularly for me, in terms of some of these terms and getting to understand a lot more about the direction that sport is going. And so, of course, we are running out of time for our first one. So just to conclude this particular one, when it comes to non-accidental violence, which is obviously one of the major terms that we've dealt with here, and safeguarding of sport, what is your general message to the person that is listening right now, and maybe they're saying they're in sport, whether they're playing socially, they are playing professionally or semi-professionally? What would you say in terms of them taking this seriously, or coming to an acknowledgement of it?
All I can say is I would like you to picture yourself and always play sports by putting yourself in what we call someone else's shoes. Whenever you are going to engage into any sporting activity, having had that kind of a mindset, it then allows you to be a sports person. And what you're going to exhibit on the field of play is sportsmanship as compared to gamesmanship. Gamesmanship is where you want to win at all costs. So you hardly then think of the other party. When you are doping, you're not thinking of the other party. When you are insulting and harassing someone and abusing, you are not thinking of the other person. You are just focusing on what it is that I require for me to win. So I would leave you with this kind of a mindset that before we then tackle on the thicker things, when we're now going into the real aspect to deal with safeguarding, who are you as an athlete? Remember that we said before you become an athlete, you are a human being. And here at Zimbabwe Olympic Committee, we have coined what we call an ABC approach, which we give to all sports stakeholders, media people involved, right? What we're saying is, as a human being, you have an attitude which is a function of your belief system, right? That attitude is what creates a habit, general habit, that you just become like a daisical about everything. Before then, after that, you are going into a behavior, whose behavior then creates a character. So now here's the ABC approach, right? That as a human being, you coexist, or you exist in this form. So before you come and become a coach, before you want to become a sports journalist, before you want to become an athlete, who are you as a person? How is this ABC function in you relating or going to help us or assist us in getting the best athlete, the best coach, the best supporter, the best journalist, the best sponsor, the best parent involved in all of us coming together to perform or make sure that our sport is performed to the best of our ability, or whoever is participating.
Well, definitely that is something for you to think about, especially if you're involved in sport in the same way that I am as a journalist, no longer playing socially. I don't think I've got too much, or I've got spare parts that can be found when I'm injured. But thank you so much, Tawanda, for your time today. Obviously, we're coming back again in order to discuss more aspects about safeguarding.
Thank you.